Issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 12 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.
All right, on today's show, our focus will revolve around the West African Economic Community, Ecowas, as it's facing a myriad of security and economic issues threatening to shake its relative stability and economic progress. Now, the man Ghana's Nana Akufo-Addo assumes the mantle of leadership, taking over from his predecessor, His Excellency Mahamudu Issoufou of Niger. So what does this portend for the future of the region as it strives towards economic integration and ultimate prosperity for all through a single currency, the ECO? I'd like to say welcome to the agenda, unapologetically African for Africans. My name is Henry Williams. Thank you for joining us once more. I'd like to say we'll be looking at all the facts and all the sides on this issue, asking the hard questions that will provoke stakeholders and decision makers in places of leadership to take positive action. Now, don't forget that you can watch us on the go at www.loveworldplus.tv or download our app from the called Loveworld Plus from the Google or Android store. On that note, it's time for us to set sail on our discussion today, looking at ECOWAS. What are the challenges? How do we move forward? With a new leadership in place, there's so many questions to be asked. But before I unveil my guest, we look at the challenges that range from terrorism and violent extremism to piracy, political instability, election-related violence, drug trafficking, and yes, don't forget the big one, the COVID-19 challenge. Let's take this report that really gives us a bird's eye view of who Ghana's President Nana Addo is and what he might be bringing to the table, and we'll be right back.
From Lagos
to London, from Johannesburg
for several years, our economy
to the United States,
identifying houses of worship. We have all the world covered for you, no matter where you are.
Love with News is at the heart of it all.
I have experience.
We bring you our perspectives of stories behind the story.
The signs given to us for the entry of these things are before us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us on this station.
The President of Ghana is president for every single Ghanaian, whether you voted for me or not.
Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was born in Swalaba, Accra, Gold Coast, to a prominent Ghanaian royal and political family, as the son of Edward and Adeline Akufo-Addo. His father, Edward Akufo-Addo, was Ghana's third Chief Justice, Chairman of the Constitutional Commission, and the non-executive President of Ghana from 1970 till 1972. As current President of Ghana, he previously served as Attorney General and as Minister for Foreign Affairs under the Kufuor-led administration. As he emerges as the new chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, elected at the 57th ECOWAS Summit in Niamey, Niger, analysts say he has come at a time when the sub-region is facing immense challenges of the actualization of ECOWAS' single currency program called the ECO, as most of the member states are still struggling to meet some of the convergence criteria for the takeoff of the currency and economic integration. As the region still grapples with the devastating effects and economic disruption caused by the COVID-19 challenge, growing level of terrorism, predominant in countries like Nigeria, Niger, and Burkina Faso, which seem to have affected ECOWAS Vision 2050. His first assignment as chairman will be to resolve the political crisis in Mali and help the country return to civil rule amidst rising insurgency. President Akufo-Addo takes over mantle of leadership from the President of Niger, His Excellency Mahamudu Issoufou, and will serve as chair for a period of 1 year.
All right, that report gives us a foothold to move forward on today's discussion. What does the President of Ghana bring to ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States? Well, I am in good company. I have a gentleman joining me here, African economy analyst, Kelechi Deka. Great to have you join me on the agenda.
It's my pleasure.
Fantastic. And we look forward to having representative, a member of the Nigerian International Affairs, the NIIA, FM Ubi, a senior researcher, joining us via video call. So we'll be hoping to see FM Ubi join us as the discussion goes on. Well, very interesting developments on the West African sub-region, Kelechi. ECOWAS, very critical bloc in Africa. And yes, nations that come together for a purpose, for prosperity, for progress, and yes, fostering trade among each other. And what does Nana Akufo-Addo bring to the table for you?
For me, I will start by saying that ECOWAS has not lived up to expectation, judging from the fact that, for 4 decades it's been there, and aside from the fact that it was the first regional economic community in Africa, which was set up by Nigeria. Nigeria, drove the instrumentation that led to the establishment of the Economic Community of West African States, starting from 1974. Then it got into fruition in 1975. Then when you compare it with other regional economic communities that kind of copied from ECOWAS, like the SADC of Southern African Development Community, and the East African Economic Community that just took off just 2 decades ago, started. When you compare what has been achieved, you discover that ECOWAS has not really done as expected. So one would look at Nana Akufo-Addo as, one would expect him to be able to drive that integration, not just economic integration. The challenge ECOWAS had was trying to drive economic integration without looking at political integration. Politics drive economy.
Political economy.
Yeah. So that's what drives it. So when one country is pursuing a different political agenda, another country, the neighbor is pursuing a different economic agenda, and you want them to have an economic integration, you have to look at some of the issues that have to do with their politics. So that's the area I'm expecting him to be able to. And I also think that over the last few years, there's been a kind of, the ECOWAS member countries, they faced a lot of issues that kind of thawing issues that have, that's been hitting at the seams of those integration, the sinews of those integration precepts.
Talk about the neo-colonialist
issues with France, which is part of the challenge ECOWAS has been having, because if you look at the SADC region, you discover that almost, or if not just one country in that region that is not English speaking, which is Mozambique. All other region, all other members, they are mostly English-speaking
That makes it
countries.
easier for
it's easier because they are having, because they had the same colonial experience, and they were handed also the same colonial administrative structure. So it is easier for this person, it's easier for, say, a judicial system of Zimbabwe and that of Zambia and Botswana to be able to merge, so that when they're looking at treaties to be signed, they don't have the problem we have in West Africa, whereby you have to look at the traditional judicial system that the 5-member English-speaking Anglophone ECOWAS country inherited, and the other ones that the Francophone ECOWAS country inherited from France. So there's a mismatch.
Do you think that this was not carefully, the formation of ECOWAS was not carefully thought out, considering the challenges that you have actually highlighted? They're talking about the language barriers, which are also more like an impediment to trade, more of an impediment to actually the vision of ECOWAS itself.
Yeah, but ordinarily, one would have expected that, if Europe, with the cacophony of languages they have there, been able to move across the language and cultural and even religious barrier, and been able to, come up with the EEC, one would have expected that ECOWAS would have been able to follow that same line. But the thing is that when you're talking about Europe, you're talking about countries that are independent. Yeah. But when you're talking about the African countries, you're looking at countries that are quasi-independent. Some of them are still taking orders from either Elysee Palace or from the Whitehall. So that's where they have the challenges.
Well, let's bring FM Obi, a senior researcher at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, into the discussion. Hello, FM. Thank you for joining us on the agenda.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great to see you there. As we can see your face looking good. And yes, FM's reaching us from the NIIA office in Lagos, Southwest Nigeria here. We're talking about ECOWAS. As ECOWAS, the baton is passed on to Ghana's president as the chair of that economic bloc. What do you think that Akufo-Addo might bring to the table, considering the fact that a lot of analysts, including my guests here in the studio, say that ECOWAS has not actually delivered on the vision that that was the founding vision of it in the beginning?
Thank you, Henry, for always trying to bring me to your station. I keep fighting with you about that. Okay. Yes, we have a new ECOWAS chair in the person of Nana Akufo-Addo. Truth be told, we are yet to achieve all that we are supposed to achieve under ECOWAS, right from when it was established. And there are many issues yet to be, achieved. For instance, the regional integration, the monetary integration, and a host of others. So now that is now that he's sitting as the new head of ECOWAS, I think he has a whole lot, especially realizing that West Africa generally is perturbed by crisis, instability. Much more recently, you find out that the instability is found within the Sahel region of West Africa. Now, we also have the issues of political problems, issues of elongation of term in Africa, which our president addressed during the 57th ECOWAS meeting in Niger, Niamey. Then we also have the problem of military pushes, as the case was in Mali. I think he has a whole lot, to worry over and a whole lot to do in West Africa now that he's taking over. And we're also not forgetting the fact that we have crisis with Ghana. We have minor crisis with Ghana, especially what has recently happened. First, we saw what happened when they demolished our High Commission. And secondly, the disruption of Nigerian businesses in Ghana. I think these are all issues that he will really have to consider and look for ways to resolve.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, as you pointed out, that, yeah, we still have issues with Ghana, and we do, recently, just recently, we heard that the Ghanaian president had visited Nigeria to see President of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, and many people have said that it's not unrelated to what is happening in Ghana right now, talking about the traders' spat with Ghanaian authorities. We hope that will be resolved going forward. But really, do you see Ghana's Akufo-Addo comes highly respected by a lot of Africans who feel that he comes with a different let me say, different clouds from the previous leaders we've seen. He comes with a flamboyance that also suggests that African leaders should not be condescending. He's been making a lot of statements that seem to strike the right chords with Africans, both at home and abroad, especially his meetings that I've seen him speak with the president of France, Macron, saying that Africa is not in need of aid, but rather partnerships. And those are the kind of statements we should be, Africans want to hear. Do you think that he can do something differently for the West African bloc here?
Well, when you talk about the organization as a bloc, and what the new head of ECOWAS can do, it sounds very ambitious. I think for me, these are things that individual countries, could also will have to handle by themselves. Yes, you quoted the president of France where he says we don't need aid. No country in the world that doesn't need aid. But the most important thing is how you apply the aid, how you implement what the aid or the loans that you're collecting, and which must be channeled into productive infrastructure. And so I don't think, and I've been arguing over this, that, as a bloc, the head of that bloc or the organization can help individual Africans. But you see, we can fight as a bloc, as a group, when it has to do with issues of Africa that is holistic, but not in terms of bilateral relationship, in terms of trade. Now, even when you are looking at ECOWAS trade, you're looking at it from an individual country. How much of trade is it that Nigeria has with other countries of the West, say the United States, say the Great Britain or Germany? How much of trade does Ghana have with these countries? So then if it is only that you put in a lump sum, that you now say, oh, this is ECOWAS trade with EU, ECOWAS trade with America, ECOWAS trade with Britain. So I don't think we should be looking at what he can do for Africa or for ECOWAS and the individual countries. But I think, he should be able to manage the leadership as a leader of the organization. He should be able to co-opt, manage bring other leaders together. I mean, in concerted effort to fight Africa's problem or fight the West African West African problems like insecurity, underdevelopment. Now, right now, since we're talking about integration, we actually need interconnectivity amongst ECOWAS countries. We need to have intermodality in terms of roads, rail lines, aviation across these different countries for ease of trade, and I think this is what we should be looking at. Then how do we do that as countries within the region? How is it going to channel effort into making other leaders within the region come together to see how trade will be eased, to look at the protocol on free movement within ECOWAS. I think these are issues, but I think importantly, I want to say, like I have said initially, that the goal of development, the goal of economic development, economic growth and development rests on individual countries. But again, there are issues that we can fight concertedly, together. And those are issues like issues of insecurity. Yes, you could, the whole of ECOWAS countries could come together. Then issues of military purchase, which is actually becoming old-fashioned. I think they have to come together because we need to talk to each other, and to see how we could, allow democracy to thrive within the sub-region.
All right, thank you very much, FM. Well, to give us more insights into what Akufo-Addo might be doing, I would like us to take his acceptance speech at the 57th session of ECOWAS, where he made very clearly highlighting 4 or rather 5 of the critical issues, the pillars or challenges that ECOWAS needs to face, needs to tackle, needs to deal with. And then we'll come back and really pick some things out of this and see what, how we can move forward with that report. Let's take that brief and we'll be right back.
In 2019, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo demanded mining deals be more beneficial for Africa, calling on governments to end fiscal incentives traditionally used to attract investment to countries long viewed as rife with risk. Resource nationalism was high on the agenda at the African Mining Indaba in Cape Town, as resource-holding governments, aware of the need for international miners to find new exploration territory, increased tax and royalty demands. Akufo-Addo, leader of Africa's second-largest gold producer, said that the continent's reputation of political instability was outdated and improvements in the rule of law should be reflected in countries' relationships with mining companies.
Challenges which confront West Africa. Past leaders of ECOWAS have demonstrated their collective will and determination to drive the agenda of regional integration, opening up our economic frontiers, encouraging healthy competition amongst member states, and ensuring that we adhere to our formative principles. As much as considerable progress has been made since the establishment of ECOWAS some 45 years ago, we are all agreed that there's much more to be done to consolidate the socio-economic and political gains made over the years. Excellencies, 5 immediate challenges face our regional organization. Firstly, the continuing activities of terrorists in our region, concentrated for the time being in the Sahelian area, involving Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and the northern parts of Nigeria. They seek an opportunity to extend their range southwards to the coastal states of the community. The activities of these terrorists form the backdrop to the recent coup in Mali. Secondly, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has attacked the populations and economies of each one of our states. It calls for concerted action on our part to defeat it, including our maximum support to the ECOWAS COVID-19 champion, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thirdly, the imminent coming into force of the African Continental Free Trade Area on 1st January 2021, whose secretariat is located in our region in Ghana's capital, Accra. The economies of ECOWAS should be prepared to take full advantage of this seminal development in the life of our continent, and indeed provide the leadership that will enable the AFCFTA to succeed. Fourthly, the 2020 decision on monetary union within our Ecowas space. We have all recommitted ourselves to the Ecowas single currency program and have taken into account the courageous move by our sister nations of the UEMOA community to break their long-standing links with the Banque de France. We need practical measures to advance the process of financial and monetary integration. Fifthly, the consolidation of democratic governance in the turbulent conditions of the community. We must uphold our constitutive texts while acknowledging the national conditions of each of our states. This is the guidance that will enable us to promote a satisfactory resolution of the crisis in Mali. The challenges in these critical regional spheres, such as security, economy, trade, currency, and health, must be addressed in a spirit of genuine cooperation and solidarity if we are to succeed in overcoming them, which we can. In so doing, we must protect at all costs our freedom and independence of action so that the development of our community responds to the needs and aspirations of our peoples and not to the goals of external agencies and forces.
All right, that is the President of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, at his acceptance speech at the 57th Summit of Ecowas. And in his statements, which resonate with a lot of Africans, he says, we must protect at all costs our freedom and independence of action so that the development of our community responds to the needs and aspirations of our people and not to the goals of external agencies or forces. Does that make sense to you, Kelechi?
Yeah, it makes sense to the extent that you have the capabilities to be able to achieve that.
Because, okay,
yeah. If you don't have the capabilities to be able to achieve that, you're just dreaming. Because when you look at the entire situation, most African countries are still struggling to be able to sever themselves, to wean themselves away from their colonial appendages. And unless you're able to achieve that, the issue of sovereignty, the issue of being able to itemize the things you're supposed to do, chart your agenda and pursue that what's on the agenda will be very, very hard, especially when you're dealing with, an organization that has both Anglophone, Francophone, and Lusophone countries. So you're dealing with three different blocks. And these three different blocks had to get to a level whereby you will be able to say, now we can agree on something and we'll be able to pursue it, irrespective of what external forces think. And also factor in the fact that aside from the colonial forces, we are now having an emergence of neo-colonialism coming in from East, represented by China. And most of these countries are also having a lot of allegiance to China than they have to their. So now it's a kind of a trilemma. You don't know whether to focus on the colonial masters' influence,
or the
neo-colonialism, or the internal lack of cohesion. So which one are you going to tackle first and foremost?
All right, let me bring in FM Obi. Hello, FM, are you with us? And you can I can see you smiling. Now, what do you take from what the chairperson of the ECOWAS, Nana Akufo-Addo, said? He made some salient points about 5 key challenges that ECOWAS faces, and one of them that really caught my attention was the part where he talked about the ECOWAS fulfilling the aspirations of the peoples and not the goals of external agencies and forces. Yeah, Kelechi pointed out that neocolonialism is an near and present threat to any aspiration that we might want to achieve on the continent. As ECOWAS seems to want to foster progress to achieve the single currency, the ECO, there are interests that are playing out. And one of them is, according to analysts, France. France is there, lurking in the shadows. And of course, it has ties with some of these ECOWAS states. So what kind of challenge does this pose to ECOWAS achieving its objectives?
Well, what you just said has posed challenges for Africa right from time immemorial. You know, after those who colonized Africa left, they didn't just leave like my colleague there in the session said. You know, there was this progression into a different kind of colonialism, which was called post-colonialism, and which is also looked at and being seen as imperialism. You know, where they sit down there in the metropolis and try to control the core of the developing nations, you know, determine how they should run, the system of government they should run, the kind of government they should run, the kind of policies that should be implemented and all that. I think this has always been the case with Africa. And that is why, you know, I kind of like the speech by the Ghanaian president, Professor Nana Akufo-Addo, who, when he said we should avoid this kind of control. You know, I think until we begin to move away from the appendages of our colonialists, I think there will be no headway for Africa. I think we need to fashion out our own economic policies, our own economic development strategy, development plan, away from what is specified by financial institutions in the West, like the IMF and the World Bank. And maybe, like we said, and even the emerging economies of China, India, Japan, China, India, maybe Brazil, and a host of other emerging economies. I think it is high time that Africa now need to sit up and decide what's good for them. For instance, I have argued before that even democracy itself, or liberal democracy, is not a one-size-fits-all. You know, and so if we are going to practice any kind of government, any system of government, it should be laced with with the dynamics of or with the socio-structural dynamics of our states, our nations, and all that. So even the economic models that we have to adopt too must be locally adapted, so that we don't miss out in a whole lot of things. I think he's right. You know, I kind of agree with him. And you see, there should be ownership. We have to have ownership of our own system, of our politics, our economy, our socio-cultural structures and all that. We shouldn't be controlled. I think we have to move away from that, you know, and if Africa is to make any headway, we really need to move away from that. And we should begin to look at how we can run our own system of government, our own economics, such that, you know, whatever we do will be beneficial to the domestic economy, to the nation, to the citizens and all that. I think he is right, and I think I kind of accept with him. And
okay.
Even my colleague there in the station, what he said, you know.
Okay.
I think it is high time we start moving away from it, because other countries will keep coming. Now we have China, we have India. There are other countries that are actually rising, that will also start coming to take advantage of Africa. I think we need to move away from it.
All right, taking advantage of Africa will not stop, and that's what FM says. But one thing, one issue he also highlighted in that speech was the African Continental Free Trade Area, a pipe dream that is yet to be realized. But what should come first? Can it come before the actualization of the single currency regime for ECOWAS? Shouldn't that be a test run for the wider, you know, AFCTA?
Yeah, you know, if you go back to history and look at the Lagos Plan for Action, Lagos Plan for Action was the is the roadmap that bettered all we are seeing now, from the African Union, from African integration, African free trade area, even the establishment of the African Development Bank, the establishment of African Export and Import Bank, Afrexim Bank. All these things were encapsulated in the Lagos Plan of Action. And that Lagos Plan of Action, which was in 1963, had in it the vision that Africa will one day be a unified territory, and that it will have a single central bank and also a single currency. But now, after some time, they found out that this thing can be handled by piecemeal approach, whereby you have regional economic communities. Each region, because of what they thought was a kind of cultural affinity between each region, they said that, okay, it's better you kind of integrate family by family. Then when we want to march together, then every family comes together and march instead of individuals within the family. The expectation was that by then they would have smoothened all the rough edges within the regional economic communities. But after about 40 years, and we're still saying that, and now when you look at what Africa is planning now, they're now thinking of the year 2063. You know, they moved it on. But that's an aside.
Ecowas saying 2050.
Yeah, so that's an aside. But you have to look at some of the challenges. When you talk about African Continental Free Trade Area, yeah, that's a very laudable and commendable project. But the thing is that you have to also look at capacity. Do we have the capacity to be able to monitor effectively some intents of some criminal elements of some governments not being able to conform? When Nigeria locked its borders, unanimously took that unanimous decision to lock its borders, it was against the Ecowas protocol to take such unanimous decisions. Yeah, but what Nigeria was pursuing also was some of the challenges that came up with the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The fear of Nigeria was that some of these other countries that have lower manufacturing capacities comparatively might become a kind of re-exporting zones, whereby some foreign behemoths will use them as a kind of landing to be able to do a repackaging. Instead of they manufacture something abroad, then they bring it in some of those countries and repackage it and stamp it that it was manufactured. For example, in Benin Republic, when you look at the fact that Benin Republic is among the highest importers of rice in the whole world, then you ask yourself, what is the population of Benin Republic to be the highest importer of rice in the whole world? But when you look at it, you know where the rice is going to. And that's some of the challenges Nigeria was facing. But they did not take it the right way. You know, doing a blanket border closure for one particular is like using a sledgehammer to kill an ant. So that was what caused a lot of problem. What you saw Ghana doing recently was kind of a revenge for that kind of for what they suffered through that border closure. So when you're talking about the free trade, you have to have things in place. The issue is that you don't have to go about reinventing the wheel. The European Economic Community, the EU, has already set certain things in motion. Follow what they implemented. But I think you have to also take into consideration that EU is a far more developed society, far more advanced technologically than Africa. But the thing is that there are lower hanging fruits we should start plucking if we want to talk about that trade integration.
All right, as we wind down, I'm told time is fast spent, but FM, let me come to you and talking about those lower hanging fruits what would you want to leave? What thoughts would you want to leave us with as we discuss the economic integration?
Well, what I would want to say is that there's nothing bad with economic integration. I think we all need ourselves in Africa. You know, if Africa is going to be a great continent, well, we should also remember too that Africa is the future. You know, this is a continent that is endowed with human and natural resources. And in terms of the free trade, you know, I still have a reservation, and I think I have to air it out here. And the question I want to ask, the cat and the horse, which come first? Is it the horse or the cat? You're talking about free trade, you're not industrialized. Your manufacturing is very low. So what are you going to be selling? Then in terms of the border closure, like my colleague said, Nigeria didn't close its borders. What Nigeria did was to close the border against illegal exportation. Not that it closed the border. There's still movement in the border, but that contraband and illegal imports are not allowed in. And all that. I think all we need to do is to look for ways, you know, in which we have to maximize our relationship amongst ourselves in terms of Ecowas, the region, the sub-region, and the continental Africa at large. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, FM Ubi there of Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, a senior research fellow. It's been great having you on the agenda. I also want to thank Kelechi Deka with me here. Thank you so much for your insights, Kelechi. It's been very robust and insightful. Yes, as we wind down on the show, I want to thank you for staying with us. As one thing is certain, as the new chairman of Ecowas, Nana Akufo-Addo, the president of Ghana, takes up the mantle. They expected that, we hope that all that he has highlighted as the challenges will be surmounted. I also look for more cooperation amongst the West African bloc to actually actualize a single currency agenda and, of course, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. On that note, I want to say that's so much we can take on today's edition of the agenda. For your comments and contributions, don't forget to log on to our website at www.loveworldplus.tv or go to any of the online stores to download our app, Love World Plus. Until we meet again, remember that only Africans can build Africa. My name is Henry Williams. God bless you, and bye-bye.
Issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 12 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.